So welcome everybody. Today we're going to talk about stress management and stress management techniques with essential oils and supplements from Young Living Essential Oils. Young Living is the company that I've been using and working with since 2013. And personally, I love their products. I kind of love everything about the company. It's an amazing company. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about stress management. So why should I be the person telling you about stress management? You can learn about stress management from anybody. And I am a craniosacral therapist and a massage therapist. And the majority of my practice in some form or fashion comes back to stress, comes back to how people process stress, how it impacts our bodies, and what it does with other systems to our body systems. So right now it's March 31st, 2020. So we're in the middle of this coronavirus, COVID, shelter-in-place shutdown situation. It's a high stress situation for a lot of people. And what we know when we look at the immune system is one of the number one things that can impact in a negative way the immune system is high levels of stress. So it's important to pay attention to stress throughout life, and especially when we really want to be supporting other body systems or when we're dealing with other things. So that's why I decided to do one on stress management, not focusing on the immune system part of that. There are so many videos right now and discussions in classes about the immune system. I wanted to look at how can we talk about what we need to do from a different perspective. So we're going to talk about stress management perspective. And then I'm just muting all the people that are on the call. If you have a question, you can unmute yourself and then ask or type it in the chat box. I'll watch that. I just want to make sure that we don't get a lot of feedback or extra noise. So there's a lot of different types of stress. And what we know is when we have stress in one situation, our body typically quickly responds in stressful ways in other situations. So different types of stress can include physical stress, chemical stress, emotional stress, environmental stress, mental stress, performance-related stress, relationship stress, and then stress that just starts with being tired and irritable and having insomnia or not sleeping well or just basic things like that. So there's so many things that can encompass and that we can talk about in stress that it can become stressful just talking about it. So we're just going to take a deep breath and recognize that there are a lot of options and a lot of things that we can do to help support everything. When I started thinking this morning about what oils I wanted to pull out and what things I wanted to talk about, I started just going down a mental list. I didn't look at any books. I didn't look at anything. I just went down a mental list. What do I actually do for myself to make sure that I'm taking care of myself when I'm feeling a little bit stressed out in one of those categories? So I just started gathering oils, and then I gathered some supplements. And it got to the point I have 20 oils sitting here next to me and 7 supplements, 8, 9, 10 supplements. I have so many things in front of me. I was like, okay, stop. You don't have to pull out your entire collection. This is getting a little crazy. Way too much to talk about. My point of sharing that is that there are so many options and we're each chemically different. So what works for me may or may not work for you. And what I know is what works for me in one day can change in another day. So for example, there are days when I'm having a little bit of a challenge sleeping. Cedarwood is a great oil for me to use. There are other days where valerian is the key. Other days, it's vetiver. A lot of days, it's peace and calming. And sometimes, especially lately, it's been lavender, which is interesting because lavender hasn't been my go-to for calming and sleeping ever. It's been my go-to for other things, but it's showing up right now as something that's supportive of me. So how do I know what works for me? Well, I personally use muscle testing, which you can also use your intuition. You can also look at it. So what I do typically is if I have kind of an idea, it's probably one of these two, I might hold it in my hand and feel how that feels for me internally. Like, do I feel like I get a little bit more settled? Or do I feel kind of the same or more agitated? And then I'll hold the other one in my hand and see what that feels like to me. When I'm grounded and present, I get a different sensation in my body when I'm tuning in and paying attention to what that feels like in my hand. I can use that information to help me figure out, well, what is it that I really want to feel, and is this going to be helpful for me? If you know how to muscle test or do pendulums or anything like that, go for it. Use that. Pendulum your oils. See what's the right thing for you. Muscle test. I've been teaching people how to muscle test for quite a long time. It's a great skill to have when you're not sure. Open the bottles up, take a smell, see what feels right for you. Ultimately, just pick one and use it and see what happens. Then you can make a mental note. Okay, this made me feel like this today. Cool. Gives you a little bit more information, puts a file in your mental file cabinet for how your body may or may not respond to that oil. Supplements are also great options when we're talking about stress relief and stress reduction. If you have the essential oil desk reference guide that's put out by Life Science Publishing, which the website is discoverlsp.com in case you don't have it, it's a great guide to use for learning about essential oils and products from Young Living and how to use them, what they might be used for. But some of the supplements that are suggested and that I personally use to make sure I have a healthy system and a healthy response to stress, one of those is Super B. So Super B on the label says it promotes a positive outlook and healthy energy, and it also supports normal cardiovascular health. That's cool. I get a twofer there, right? Pretty easy, basic, straight one, right? Super Cal Plus. When our levels of calcium and minerals are balanced well, our systems, for the most part, tend to be more balanced. More balance means I can handle stress differently and I don't get overwhelmed by it. Immu Pro is another supplement that's commonly used. Anytime you have higher stress levels, our immune system naturally takes a hit. So if I can support my immune system, I support my stress levels. If I support my stress levels, I support my immune system. It goes in both directions. Anytime you support any one system in your body, the other systems also get a little bit more support or an opportunity to balance in a different way. So that's another one. Personally, I know a few people who like the taste of Immu Pro. It is a chewable. I don't like the taste of it. I'm going to be totally honest. So what I do when I'm taking Immu Pro is I hold my nose. I don't breathe through my nose, but I take my Immu Pro and then I get the Super C chewable. So I have the Super C tablets and the Super C chewable. When I'm taking Immu Pro, I chew my Immu Pro and then I take my Super C chewable. So that's the taste that lingers in my mouth and I don't taste the Immu Pro. Immu Pro has a few different types of mushrooms in it, and that's the taste that I don't like in my mouth. It also has strawberries and other things that are actually yummy tasting. But for me, my palate picks up the mushrooms more, which is why I don't like it. So I grab a Super C chewable and I eat that at the same time as I'm eating my Immu Pro. And that's how I do that. Thiramine is another good one for supporting stress. It supports your natural, healthy thyroid function. The thyroid is a gland that impacts a lot of things in the body. So when that is functioning well, other things get to function well, everything comes back up to a little bit more balance. Inner Defense is another supplement that's really useful right now, but it's also a good supplement that's in the list for supporting stress levels. This is an immune support supplement. If I'm feeling like I'm battling something, I will take this more often. If I'm not, then I might just take that once a week. It's not something you have to take all the time. Again, I really pay attention to how my body is responding to anything I put in my body. I make that attempt. I don't always succeed. So when I'm working with my supplements, I'm checking in with my body to see what is it that I need, what's going to be supportive of me. For me, I use muscle testing. You can use a pendulum. You can do any of the things that you would naturally normally do to figure out, is this going to be a good option for you? Another group of supplements that can be really helpful with stress management is the CBD products that Young Living has right now. So this is one of the tinctures. This is the Cool Mint tincture. There are 3 different types of tinctures. We have the cool mint, we have the citrus fresh, and we have the cinnamon one. I can't think of what the cinnamon one is called, but it's cinnamon. And so that can be another thing to help support healthy levels of stress or lower levels of stress. All of those things are things we want anyway, right? Reduce the stress, boost all the other systems in our body, and just generally live healthier. Whenever I think about how much stress I'm under or I may be under, another thing that I think about, I really paying attention to, is my gut health. How is my gut doing? Because it is one of the systems that very quickly interacts with every other system in my body. So when I need that extra support, when I want to make sure that things are as balanced as possible, I put a lot of focus in my gut health. So that means I'm doing my probiotics. That would be my Life 9 and Mighty Zyme. Not Mighty Zyme, Mighty Pro. There we go, Mighty Pro for the probiotics. And it also means I'm taking my enzymes, whether that's the Essential Zymes 9, Detox Zymes, or Allerzymes. There's lots of enzyme options depending on what works best for your body. I want to be able to break down the food that's in my body, and I want to be able to have the healthy microbiome in my gut to support everything else. So the probiotics and the enzymes help in both of those capacities. There's a lot of things that we can do, clearly, just based on what I've said already, to help support and manage stress. So what do we do where essential oils are? Okay, so there's a question from Karen. That's good. What if I'm not familiar with muscle testing or a pendulum? That's great. There are a lot of YouTube videos where you can go and look at it. There's a book that you can read called Emotion Code, and it's not for muscle testing, but he has an entire chapter on like 12 different ways to muscle test. But you have to be able to trust your muscle testing if you're going to muscle test, or trust your pendulum if you're going to use that. And if you can't get there, then simply taking, so let's say I'm debating between Valor and Peace and Calming. If I just settle in, open my bottle and take a whiff, and I want to smell from both nostrils, and then just notice how I feel in my system after I've smelled that. So I smell, take a moment, and then take the other one, and I'm going to do the same thing. So for me right now, immediately I know Peace and Calming is the thing, because what happened when I smelled the Valor is I kind of got a little bit, like I had a sensation of a little bit, like not tightening in my chest, but like, didn't feel like the thing. When I smelled the Peace and Calming, everything in my body just kind of went, kind of like when I smell a bouquet of flowers and it's just the bouquet that I need to smell. It's like, oh yeah, that's it. So that's the sensation I get. I do, the other question that she had is, what if I want an oil for my husband or a child? I use these techniques for my niece and nephews all the time, or for my brothers and sisters, or for other people. When they're in person, what I'll often do is, without showing them the label, my niece is really good at this. She's really allows me to do this. She puts out her hand, and I put the oil in her hand, and she closes it. And then she'll sit there for a minute, and then I'll put the other one in her hand, and she closes it. And she'll tell me, the first one or the second one. If she's not in the mood to do that, which, she's 7, it doesn't always happen, then I'll open it and let her smell and see which one she likes better. Sometimes she'll just walk in and she'll point to one. She's like, that's the one. Okay, cool. She's using her inner guidance and her intuition to figure out what will work. Another question is, what if I don't have a lot of oils? Which ones should I start with? That depends. I do know there are a few people who use pendulum for muscle testing who will get the catalog, and they'll open it up, and then they'll muscle test the oils in the catalog with an intention. So setting the intention of, I want something to support stress levels, I want something to support me sleeping well, whatever it is. And they'll muscle test the things in the catalog or use a pendulum to see what works, what might work for them. That's a fine way to do it. It's a nice option. For me, my suggestion would be, see what oils you have right now and start using those. If you're ready to add to your oil collection, think about what's worked for you in the past, make sure you have that, and then start exploring a little bit. Okay, what do I want to try? Was there an oil, or is there an oil that when I look at it online or I look at it in the book, I go, when Megan was talking about oil, she held up an oil and I was like, hey, that sounds kind of cool. I want to do that. Keep a list and see what works for you. For me, when I started, my budget was a big concern in essential oils, especially because I wasn't working a lot. So I would have a list of oils that I wanted to try, and I would have a list of oils that I know work well, and then I would keep track of what am I running low on. So when I'm trying to figure out what it is that I'm going to order, then I can look at those oils, make sure I have what I know I need on hand, and then I get to explore with whatever else is in my budget to explore. There are so many options that you don't have to go out and spend $300 to find an oil that works for you. So let's talk about some of these oils, since I have a bunch of them out here, and that might help give you a little bit of an idea of some of the ways you can go. So when we're talking about stress management, if I have somebody that comes into my office for a session or whatever, and they're asking about stress, and they're asking about essential oils, the ones that I typically go to first, straight off the bat, are Peace and Calming, Stress Away, and Valor. And these are 3 blends from from Young Living. Peace and Calming tends, for most people, to be exactly what it says, peace and calming. And it tends to be more for, at least for me and for a lot of people, about mental, emotional kind of levels of stress. This can be a great one. I put this on my feet before I go to bed, and I can kind of almost feel my system downshifting in gears, calming down. You can also use it in a diffuser. You can make room sprays with it. There are tons of ways to use Peace and Calming. Stress Away tends to work more for me, and I believe it was formulated like this from Gary, to work more on physical stress. So when I'm physically under a lot of stress, Stress Away is the thing. My first bottle of this, I put a roller top on it, and then I rolled it on my neck, because that's where I held a lot of my tension. That's where I held a lot of my stress. Started using it as a perfume instead of perfume, because so many people like the smell of it. Stress Away has copaiba, lime, cedarwood, vanilla, and acacia, and lavender in it. Lavender is so small, I don't actually smell it. I smell the lime and the vanilla. So when I'll just share a quick story. Years ago, we didn't have the different vitality versus non-vitality lines. We were able, Young Living was cross-labeling things, which they've changed. But when I smelled Stress Away, it smelled like something familiar to me. And I had given up drinking alcohol. I was trying to grow a new liver and clear out some things in my system. But I still really enjoyed going out with friends and going out with coworkers for happy hour. So what I did is I would go out at happy hour and I would order a soda, a Coke, or whatever in a glass from the bar. And then I would take my Stress Away and I would put 2 drops in there with the soda, mix it up, and then drink that. And for me, it tasted just enough like a rum and Coke with a squeeze of the spiced rum and a squeeze of lime that I didn't miss the alcohol at all. And because I didn't really want the alcohol in my system. I didn't really want the effect of alcohol. What I wanted was that like calming, that like sensation that I would get when I had a cocktail. So I was able to get that without any of the alcohol, just by putting my Stress Away in there. I would put it in juice sometimes. I would do it a bunch of different ways, but it was a really nice way to kind of give me another option for how to have a stress release without putting things in my body that weren't supportive of me. So these 2 are really commonly used for stress Away and Peace and Calming. I throw Valor in the mix because Valor is a very good balancing oil, right? Some people call it a chiropractor in a bottle, but it balances our electrical system. It balances a whole bunch of systems. Some people call it courage in a bottle. At convention last year, there was a t-shirt that a lot of people were wearing that said, Valor made me do it. Like, if you don't have the courage to do it and you put Valor on, you just might get it done. But what I find is, for a lot of people, this works really well to reduce stress. And I think it's because it brings other things up into balance. It helps to balance other things, which causes that natural rebalancing in our system. Once we've talked about these three, if I have, the person figures out, yeah, oh, that one of those will work for me. Sometimes it doesn't really feel like those are the right things, or they're smelling them and they're like, no, that's not it. Or maybe they've tried them and those weren't the ones. Then I go to a couple of other ones that are that I found a lot of people are supported by. This is Sacred Mountain. Clearly, I've used this a lot. The label on my bottle is like gone, but it is actually Sacred Mountain. And this is a blend, obviously from Young Living. What I find is a lot of people who tend to run on the anxious side tend to be a little bit hyper, but not in like a healthy way, like have a good spin to them. Sacred Mountain, especially when put on the feet, can be really calming. It can be really grounding. And anything that's going to help ground and calm your system is going to help with that stress level. So I have a couple friends that I know that this is an oil that goes everywhere with them. One of my friends is male. He doesn't like smelling like oils and fruity, flowery things. So when but he knows how much this works for him. So when he gets out of the shower in the morning, he put this on his feet, puts his socks and shoes on, and he's good to go for the day. He might carry around the bottle with him in case he's having a stressful meeting or something where he feels like he needs just a little bit more balancing, and then he'll just take it out and smell it, or put a drop on his wrists or behind his ears, or all the places that we can put oils. So this tends to be another one that can be supportive of that. And then, of course, we have the basic lavender. This is Lavender Vitality. It's the Vitality bottle, just because it was the one that was handy. So this is labeled for internal use. The regular lavender is labeled for topical or aromatic use. It is the same oil in both bottles. Could be from the same batch. The label is the only difference. So lavender tends to, for a lot of people, be a calming oil. Like I said, it doesn't tend to do that for me as much. I use it for a ton of other things. Anytime I have an owie, that's what I grab, is lavender. But I found in the last week, probably, myself really gravitating towards this one at bedtime. So I'm using it on my feet at bedtime, or I'm misting a little on my pillow, or other things like that. It's good for skin health as well. So if you're having a little bit of skin stuff, that might be something to grab. It's kind of...
Megan?
Yes.
What was the one you just said that your friend used?
Sacred Mountain.
Sacred Mountain. Thank you.
You're welcome. Lavender is considered by a lot of people one of the Swiss Army knives of essential oils. You can use it for almost anything. So those are my general go-to main categories. When it's not something specific, there's just a general, like, I could use some support, I could use a little bit of help.
I have another question.
Can
the Sacred Mountain be used internally?
It is not labeled for internal use. I can't see through the label on my bottle to tell you what's in it, but
so I know on the bottom of your feet?
Yeah, bottom of your feet, in your diffuser. Make a room spray for it. You can put it on a diffusing necklace or bracelet. A lot of the men I know that use essential oils that don't want to wear jewelry are getting their watches with a cloth band, and then they'll put a drop of the oil on the cloth band so that they can, I'm checking the time, but really, I'm smelling my essential oil. So lots of different ways you can use it.
I have a friend who made me a nice bracelet with the lava in there that I wear when I travel.
Lava beads are a great option for wearing, making your own personal diffuser and wearing your oils. Another option for if you're traveling, total side tangent, is to get a nasal inhaler. And I have them, they're just not right here at my desk. But if you remember back in the day, so I remember my grandfather always had these Vicks things that he would stick up his nose and breathe. It's kind of like that, except it doesn't have all of that on it. It's this little tube. And when you open it up, there's a cotton swab in there, so you can put your oil on that and then close it up. And then when I'm on a plane or traveling or anything like that, I can just breathe into that without having to open a whole bottle or carry a whole bottle with me. It also come in really handy for in the case of spilling a bottle. I spilled an entire bottle of peppermint. It's very devastated. So I used the swabs to swab up as much of that peppermint as I could, put it in that nasal inhaler, and it's probably been 6 months and it still smells like plenty of peppermint in there. So I didn't lose the oil. I found other ways to use it. All right, see you later, Karen. So Tim is suggesting, oh, thank you. Sacred Mountain in it has black spruce, ylang ylang, Canadian balsam Canada, Idaho balsam fir, and cedarwood. Thank you, sir. Yeah, so a lot of good. And when you look at the ingredients in Sacred Mountain, a lot of them are trees. And trees tend to be, especially conifer trees, tend to be grounding in their nature, which is why Gary formulated it with that. And then ylang ylang has that like uplifting, balancing property to it. So when you put that together, the grounding from the conifer trees and the uplifting, balancing of that super floral ylang ylang, that's where we get a lot of that balance and that calming in our system, the nervous system. So those are basic ones that I kind of gravitate to regularly. Tranquil is one more basic one. It comes in a roll-on. This is a brand new one, so I'm not opening it, but it comes in a roll-on, looks like this. It's already blended, and it's blended with a carrier oil, so you just open it up, roll it on wherever you want, and it does exactly that. It's tranquil, helps you to feel tranquil. What I noticed, though, as I've been thinking about this and working with this, is that there are some oils that I know for me naturally calm me that aren't in the list. Well, I didn't think they were in the list. One of those is rosemary. When I smell rosemary, I don't know if there was a rosemary bush next to where I lived as a kid or if somebody baked rosemary bread. I don't know what it is. But when I smell rosemary, it naturally just makes my system calm down. Like I go to a place, it feels good, not like psychedelic place, but like it calms me, it feels good. And then the other one is Palo Santo. This is not a blend, this is a single oil. And it's known as one of the things that are used to smudge. So if you're familiar with smudging, that's where you take like a stick of Palo Santo or a bit of sage or sweetgrass, and you light it on fire and then blow it out and let the smoke clear a space. The Palo Santo here is the wood. It's distilled from the wood of the Palo Santo tree. So it has that ability to it. For me, I know it is super calming. So when I smell Palo Santo, it has that effect on me. So I know when I'm talking about essential oils with other people, there will likely be oils that have that stress relieving effect that aren't in the list, because this is how it works for you. This is where I say, pick the oils you have, pay attention to your levels of stress, and then start playing around with them. Smell them, put them on, put them in the diffuser. If they're vitality oils, put them in some juice or your water or your Ningxia Red and see how you feel. How does your body respond to it? That's going to give you the best information. Roman chamomile is another common one for evening time and for relieving stress. Think about the tea that is most commonly used, I think, in a lot of cultures for like settling in. It's chamomile tea. So hey, Roman chamomile essential oil, that makes total sense. Another thing that I realized is that sometimes when I'm under a lot of stress, where I feel like I can't take the stress away, like that's just going to be there, and I don't know how to deal with it, but I also don't need to deal with it, right? So whatever's happening, so right now, what's happening in the world, I don't know how to deal with it, but I also know it's not mine to deal with. So it's going to be there. Can't control that. All I can control is what's happening here and in my home and in my surroundings. I'm not going to try and deal with that. So what I can do is calm my system, help support balance, but I can also do things that are uplifting. So joy may be a great blend to try. If you're under a lot of stress, we can work on relieving the stress, releasing the stress, moving things around and changing things. Or we can look at focusing on what is it that you want to grow? What is it that you want to get bigger or better? So joy may be a good one. There's a blend called hope. There's a lot of blends that are feelings related. But if you want to help support in a lot of different ways, you can look at what is it that you want to grow instead of what do you want to reduce. So joy may be a great one to use right now. Gary used to take a couple drops of this and put this right over his heart. When I first started, I made a room spray out of joy. I made like a deodorizing spray out of joy. I was spraying joy everywhere. That was really helpful. It's a good one to use in your diffuser too. It is pretty sweet smelling. So I don't go too crazy with it, but I do notice a change in my outlook, and that's great. Additionally, any of the citrus oils have been shown to be uplifting and mood boosting for some reason. And it took me a long time. So I have bergamot, citrus fresh, and orange here. I have a bunch of others there next to the stove, my lime, my grapefruit, all the ones that I use daily in my Ningxia Red. But I didn't understand for a long time why citrus oils were so mood boosting, were so uplifting. And then I found out that this is especially true for people who are currently in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and above. And that's because back in their day, I won't say back in the day, back in their day when they were kids, and I heard this from my parents, I heard this from my grandparents, aunts and uncles, at Christmas time is when they would get oranges. We didn't live where oranges grew. I do now, but we didn't then, and they didn't live where oranges grew. So at Christmas time in their stockings, they would have an orange or two. That's when they would get their citruses, was Christmas. One of their Christmas presents was often a box of grapefruit or a box of oranges. So having that set at an early age, being, citrus is presents, citrus is Christmas, citrus is holidays, now we can use that to our benefit and put a couple drops of orange in the diffuser around our parents and grandparents, pick up those citrus oils and use them around them, and the natural, it's kind of like Pavlov's dog, naturally, the response will usually, often be that kind of boosting, uplifting sensation that comes with that. So when we're talking about stress management, we're not just talking about getting rid of stress, moving stress out, doing those things. We're also talking about boosting the parts of our system, the parts of our memories and our awareness, and where we're putting our focus and attention where we want to boost and promote. So play around with your citrus oils. See if for you, they are mood boosting. See if for you, they are supportive. Another thing I noticed is that my stress levels tend to vary sometimes with my hormone levels. I don't really want to admit that because, I'm bigger and better than my hormone cycle, and that's not a real thing, except that it is. And if you ask my friends and family, they will agree. Everybody else around me tends to know that. So I know that if I keep a good balance on my hormones and I work on balancing that, my stress levels naturally, or my response to stress, outside stresses and inside stresses, can change. So I use Progestin Plus to help balance my hormones. And then there are a lot of other essential oils that are hormone balancing, like clary sage, like goldenrod. If you want to talk hormones and hormone balancing, there's a lot of ways to do that within essential oils. There's a lot of books on how to do that. There's classes on how to do that. I mean, we could just do a whole thing on hormones, and I have before. But just putting that out there is something to think about. If you're looking at ways to balance and maintain stress, take a look at how you are hormonally and how can you bring a little bit more balance to that to kind of even that out. And then the other piece I want to just briefly touch on is that kind of spiritual level of stress, when things just feel like, ugh, or a lot of times with stress management, one of the things we talk about is meditation, is being in a quiet, calm, centered place. So you can boost that with essential oils too. Take frankincense or myrrh or white angelica or any of these types of more spiritually essential oils and put that on your hand, breathe it in, put it on the crown of your head, put it in a diffuser, and have that support your meditation practice. Have that support your yoga practice, your calming exercise routines, your sleep space, your quiet space, your music productivity space, whatever it is that you're doing, let those essential oils help and support that. And that can also help and support that stress management and stress balancing. So I talked about a lot of things. I talked about a lot of different essential oil options. I did not talk about all of them because I would have to talk about kind of every oil that there is out there and every supplement, just because of the domino effect that we tend to have when we support one system. Other systems tend to get a little bit more balanced too. So I want to open it up and see what questions people have, if you have any questions. You can type them into the chat box, or you can unmute yourself. And also, if there's an oil or essential oil or a Young Living supplement that you use to support stress management, I'd love to hear what that is. I love to hear how other people use them.
Hold on one second, Mama. Megan.
Yes.
Hey, awesome class.
Thank you.
Two things. You're welcome. Two things to share based on what you were just sharing was, you know, muscle testing is, you know, it comes so naturally, I know, to many, and to others, I think it can be confusing, like, what? Muscle what? What I have found over the years is literally just asking my body, do I need this? Yes or no? And literally the first word that pops in, it is literally yes or no. That will just pop into my head first. And you just have to be, you know, aware enough to catch it and recognize that that was the word, the first word that came in, the yes or the no, and then that's it. And I also know from everything I've learned over the years that the power of the oils is so much, you know, such that you can even just be holding the bottle, or even have it be in your pocket, to ask the question. And you don't even have to be, you know, opening the lid and smelling it. Even though, of course, that's one great way to do it too. But just holding it, you know. And then the other thing I wanted to share is vetiver. Vetiver is totally my favorite. Yes, for balancing, grounding. It's you know, one way to explain it for those who aren't familiar with vetiver is it's more, oh, I don't know. I don't know if I want to use the word calm. It's more calm. It's more calm than patchouli. There's a very similar nature to patchouli, but it just doesn't yell wild hippie patchouli. I don't know. Like, I don't know.
More mellow.
Yeah, it's mellow, even though it's not, because
right.
it's so intense still. But and I know that vetiver is used for many children also on the spectrum. So if you've not purchased vetiver before or experienced vetiver, give it a try. It's awesome. And vetiver is one of those oils that's really thick and really hard to get out. So what we do is we just put a ball on the thick oils, like vetiver. So anyway, just thought I'd share. So thank you. Great class and all the great new knowledge that, you know, that's why we are here, right? Every day, learn something new, hopefully many new things. So
yep, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, I think Tim, vetiver is one of your go-tos as well, hasn't it been? Feel like it's one that you told me I needed to buy, and that's why I have it. All right, it was an overtime thing for him. It wasn't an initial thing, but over time it's become one that he's leaned on. Awesome. All right, so Nancy or Tim, do either of you have questions or things you'd like to share? Tim is saying that Sacred Mountain is more for him than vetiver is. And I totally understand that. That's why my bottle looks like this. All right. All right. Well, I want to say thank you, everybody, for joining in and participating, for listening to me probably speak a million miles a minute and share what I have to share. I really appreciate when I can do these classes with people on with me, because it's just easier to talk when I have somebody on. And I want to say thank you for joining me. And I look forward to hearing about how you're using your oils and what you're doing with them.
Megan, I wanted to